I'm just curious why you view um, different software and programming jobs as more secure despite artificial intelligence coming into the fray. I thought that those professions would actually be more in jeopardy now that we've seen that artificial intelligence can program decently well. I'm wondering what you think about that.
Nathan, John and I discussed in a different room, the AI exploration room, why we don't think AI is going to take the programmer jobs. And I will stitch in a few chits at the end of this from both John and I. Hopefully I can find them. Put another way, programmers are not these magical elves who have learned this secret esoteric ritual which nobody else can learn and understand. Programmers are simply the people who are so dedicated to building software that they're willing to stay at the edge of the craft and learn and use every tool, no matter how sophisticated or complex it is. Today's programmer uses a different set of tools and languages, as will tomorrow's. So tomorrow's programmer may be doing natural language programming, but they will be every bit as dedicated, skilled, intense, and applying effort as in the past. So I still don't think that high-end computing gets democratized. Here is the key difference. The key difference is that when you program something, software can go to 1 billion users and it's the same software. So people always just demand the best, as opposed to where if we're digging ditches and now we all get bulldozers, it is truly democratized because, one ditch is not better than the others, and building more ditches still takes more effort. So because programming is winner take all within a given domain, the specialist programmer will continue to dominate over the generalist who's just telling the computer to write the code.
If your goal is just to collect a check, though, the enemy of automation is probably regulation, so you might be safe.
Just a little note, you can tap on the From AI Exploration in the little black box above my last chit, and that will take you to the AI Exploration room. There you can tap on any tag to get a topic list, and from there you can choose the topic of the original chit, which is everybody will build apps. And if you choose that, you will see a 30 chit sequence where we're discussing it. A little confusing, still working on the interface.
You should go to university. You should just go to university for the purpose of university. You should go to learn. You definitely need to learn more than you do in high school. And you definitely need to learn more than you'll come across on Twitter or whatever it is. Be careful with that one, right? Like, we're a very, very clever species. There's tons of amazing, fantastic things out there. But we have a lot of that information. Like, you're not going to stay home from senior year and become Einstein, right? Like, it's not about the institutional gatekeeping. It is about education and learning. And there's people, like, in any serious field, you'd be crazy to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to use semiconductors because, that's the old-fashioned way. I'm going to go on my own. I'm an independent thinker. I'm going to use wood, which I guess they can. So everyone should absolutely go to university. By that, I mean everyone should absolutely get a real education on top of frankly, the kind of really low hanging fruit that is quote unquote public education, and crazy out there fruit that is being the next, David Deutsch or, Magic Johnson or, one of the really special people in the universes. So yeah, get educated. It's the number one predictor of being happy. I'll die on that hill. I actually will die on that hill. Being educated is the number one thing you can do to be successful in life. As long as you take education for what it really, really means. Not the factory, not all the bullshit, but some sense of wisdom and acknowledgement that other wisdom does in fact exist, that you're not gonna, find on Instagram or by reading, Karl Popper 6,000 times. Really. As for the money thing, you should put it first. It is about the money. It's work, right? It is about the money. Put it first in the right way. Money means you added value, right? Something you do, spend your, that period you would have gone to college, university, you just spend it doing stuff that no one would pay anything for, or just because, it's an interesting line of thought. That's fine. And it could be incredible, but, one does have to work to have resources to do other things. And so, you should absolutely put money first, in the sense that, whatever you are great at, like, I don't know, it is a measuring stick. And I don't mean like the fluff part. I just mean you're working in terms for compensation. And if you're honest about it and compensation doesn't have to be a job. It just has to be like financial rewards. So if it's work in a career, and resource just a fact of life. If you're not going to be out there gardening 8 hours a day or doing other like life-saving work 8 hours a day, you have to contribute and do something that has value, in order to, meet your needs. And that's true, generally and specifically, right? So, but the money tells you whether you're on track for actually being a top performer in whatever field you've sort of moved into. That's what the market does. It's a great measuring stick. I don't know if this would be controversial. I'm on my blood pressure meds. Makes me lightheaded. And I guess this is where I not push back, but the colloquialism of like, all knowledge is purely internal, period, full stop. I don't want to talk about it. I got 100 examples why. Like, sorry, like the top of the most advanced technical fields in the world, like, no, that's not internal to you. You go and you work really hard for 8, 10, 12 years, and then maybe you get it. Maybe. That's not knowledge you're creating. You didn't create relativity nor quantum physics. Or rather, in defense of studies in general, or studies in the proper manner, everyone can't just be out there being their own beautiful butterfly and like send a man to Mars. That's just not. So yeah, you got to go to where, like, don't be BS about it. Don't go to like your local school just because it's easy. But like, you got to go out and find the tops of the mountains out there that other people have climbed up, and go study under them and be with other people in the forefront of whatever field. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's your passion and you can get paid to do it, or rather you can contribute enough so that you rather break even on your existence, not morally, but like in reality, staying alive or avoiding misery. Now, all knowledge is originally created internally. Like, the only person who woke up and knew calculus without learning it anywhere else is Isaac Newton, who, by the way, didn't even learn it until his late 20s, maybe early 30s. So all knowledge is created internally the first time it's created, but then it is replicated. It's absolutely replicated. There's no argument that says, like, a lot of information, if that's what knowledge is true information, durably and inarguably, from any remove. It has to be continuing on from before us. It's not all human knowledge is created internally in a practical sense, but certainly all knowledge, period, full stop. The definition of knowledge is that it was created internally by one human. That's how it became knowledge. Rant Central today.
I agree with most everything you're saying. The one comment I'll make is you made a quick comment about how going to university allows you to study under some of the great people, and to learn from your students, and to learn from people that are older than you. However, another big issue I see in universities now is the lowering of standards of the students. For example, I go to a school that has an acceptance rate of my incoming year of about 15 to 20%, which on its face seems very difficult to get into, and very competitive. Yet I got here to school, look around at my classmates, and the main feeling I have, and I know some of my other friends who think about these things have, is just feeling underwhelmed. And so I am at university. This is the course I chose, but there's a lot of shortcomings in our current system.
Yeah, I think practically it's a huge problem. I think tons of people go to school and don't find what they want. You got to change your mind. Give it the college try, as they say, and figure out if it works for you. And if it doesn't, you got to try something else. And I don't mean it like you got. I mean the royal you. And I'm a little bit in rant mode, so I didn't mean it specifically to people. Because I struggled with what I was going to study, where I was going to go, all that stuff, and it doesn't matter. Everyone struggles with that. It's common enough that I'm pointing out that it's not about whether you should go. You should definitely go. You just got to find the way to go that avoids these kind of known pitfalls, because that's what these are, right? I went to school and I did this and this and that and that. You might be able to take some. there's no one field that's like right for a person without knowing their personality. And the only person who can possibly know what interests you is you. And what's going to interest you, because you are a human, are going to be things that are further along than like, trivial things that you maybe wouldn't be able to do if you didn't, bring in some external knowledge to build you up from it. So yeah, it's a hard problem. It's the problem. And frankly, I still haven't figured out what I want to study. But I know I need to go to university because learning and education is the most important thing. I mean, love's the most important thing. Maybe you should do something about that, but that seems like to not be in the intellectual category. But yeah, I got to go to university.
I don't want to make blanket statements like you should go to university or you shouldn't go to university. I would just say that if you are self-aware enough to realize that you're sort of middle of the road and you're not that good, then sure, go to university, get your stamp, try not to be brainwashed, and use it to at least get your first job. But if you're good, if you're really good, going to university is probably a waste of your time unless you're trying to learn something very specific in a highly technical discipline that you could not learn on your own. That's kind of the exception for really bright people. So if you need to learn aerospace engineering, unlikely you're going to do it on your own, go to university. If you're just trying to learn how to start a business and you're really good, go start a business. You don't need to go to university for that. So it is contextual, but I would say that the argument for highly intelligent and capable people who do not need a credential and don't need training in a very specific esoteric and technical discipline, the argument for those people to go to university is going down and down and down with every passing year.
It's funny, I was actually meaning to circle back and say just this, that best piece of advice is to really just never outsource decisions that really affect your life to anyone else, to someone's piece of advice, i.e. don't take advice. So for the average person, or in general, I think the default position should be go out and get an education for many other reasons, but just to learn. However, it is always okay to take a gamble on yourself. It is always okay to feel a strong pull in a certain direction and have it cause you to take the path least traveled. That is 100% okay and admirable. Just recognize that, like, it's fine if it doesn't work out, but don't wholesale throw out the idea of education, because it's very important. But again, heavy quote marks, like, what's an education? It's not just, it's not just the piece of paper. It's not just where you went. It's not just any of these things. But it is the idea that there's information out there that is valuable to have. And that's worth having. But if you can get it on your own and you have a deep belief that you can go your own way and get it done, then 100%, because those people not only, frankly, even if those people don't turn into some huge success, if you feel it and you go for it and you can make it work, those people also probably tend to be more happy, and I think all of my advice could essentially be boiled down to follow your bliss, and also bear in mind that you always should be learning. That, I strongly think that people need a better education than what they get through high school.
Looking back on my own experience, I would say going to college was definitely a waste of time. And for context, I studied finance, which has nothing to do with with how I make money now. But it wasn't as big of a waste of time as it could have been, because I didn't really have a great alternative. I think if I had gotten on Twitter around the time I started college, or even before, and been exposed to all of the really smart people that I'm exposed to on there now, and learned about real entrepreneurship, like Silicon Valley style, and kind of been exposed to that side of the world, I probably would have ended up learning to code and joining a startup somewhere, and I'd be in a very different spot now. And I think it would have been a much better use of that time.
It's funny, but for someone who's done a good amount of work in finance, I don't think it's something you need to study in college. I really don't. I don't think it's technical enough. As a matter of fact, there's a little bit of voodoo there, and a lot of it ends up being mainly sales. And there's a lot of cool math in there, but 90% of jobs in finance, it's just like, you just need like high school math, frankly. Sorry. And you can be great at it. You can be great at lots of things with high school. It's not about high school math. Just don't study finance. God, from someone who's worked in a lot of finance and is quote unquote good at it, it's not hard to be good at it. Like, don't study it. Study something cool, like French literature, or, Hungarian poetry. Anything but finance. Like, take a class in it. Don't even, watch Brian Bushy's Introduction to Financial Accounting at Coursera. He's a professor at Wharton, and that's all you need to know. You're done. And then don't believe anyone. Think for yourself.
Maybe one blanket recommendation I would make for everyone. Yeah, everyone. Sometime after 18, before you're, say, 23, just start a business, any business. Go through the process, like take money in, spend money out. Doesn't have to be big. And I say after 18 because there's legal things you can do after 18 that like just are business things, like an LLC. You start filing your own taxes and stuff like that. You just learn so much when it matters, and have money involved. If there's not money involved, it's harder to learn stuff. So take anything you like to do and try and turn it into a business, even if you're gonna know it's going to lose money. Maybe even especially if you know it's going to lose money, because once you know how to do your taxes, you want deductions. I think starting a business is a life skill. So I think everyone should go to university, by which I mean they should, embrace the idea that they have to learn more than what they did in their home or before they left home. And everyone should start a business because, everyone's going to learn how to provide for themselves, maybe provide for other people, create value. So anyway, I got all fired up in the TCS channel, so I think I got to take a break for a little bit. Good morning. Happy Friday. Good to chat.
Gonna throw a question into this room. How much of an impact does being responsible or not for paying for your own university tuition affect the decision-making process of whether or not you go?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because so I had to pay for my own college, and that just meant a lot of debt. And there probably was a time in my mid-20s, late 20s, when I was off skydiver. I was like, oh, I have all this debt. If you asked me then, I probably said I couldn't have gone to school. I would have been fine to be skydiving. It's not until later that you realize kind of how important it is. So maybe I should caveat it big time because I'm older. Now I think everyone should go to school. When I was 18 or 19, I didn't think that same way. I dropped out of physics, and I was going to travel the world. And it wasn't until I read Down and Out in London and Paris that I decided to go back to school. So things could have been very different. And it's a hard thing to hear and maybe say, and I would have hated it when I was younger, but I don't think I was actually emotionally or intelligently fully formed until well after I was 18. Now, I grew up poor, but I grew up in the United States. So, me at 18, I'm not like obviously Civil War guy at 18, but your brain's not fully formed. Our brains, kids, I don't think who we are as a person is not fully determined. And so if you have to start making decisions that are in fact impactful to the rest of your life, it's a pickle. It's a tough pickle. And in both ways, like you have to pay for it yourself. Maybe it doesn't pay itself back. That's lousy, You go and don't appreciate it and don't actually learn much from it and just wind up in some cheesy job anyway. That's also lousy. So, yeah, I guess there's no answers, brother. There's no answers. Sorry to tell you. So, yeah, and I should caveat more. Like I think I express opinions that I wouldn't die on a hill for as if I would die on a hill. So, you take a break from high school, university. It's just like this constant not struggle, but tension between the fact that you have to choose for yourself, be yourself, feel the truth, and then also you're constantly not as either smart or emotionally mature or have as much grit and determination as you will later on. So you're definitely you're constantly making important decisions before the relevant facts are fully revealed, and that's the ball game. But it is going to be okay. And it is a wonderful life. And at the end of the day, all the stuff we're talking about, there's sort of the material trappings, which can seem not material trappings, but it's the intellectual journey. But then life, like even now, like it's all about my kids. I wouldn't care if I was a plumber. Well, I'd love to be a plumber. Being a plumber opens doors.